we need it. And also the guidelines typically used in the pet food industry, NRC, Apple, and PDF. And we'll talk a little bit about nutrient requirement. What do we mean by nutrient requirement? And also the importance of vitamin quality. So vitamin is not vitamin. So when you buy vitamin, you'll see different form, different quality of vitamin. So it's important to know you buy high quality vitamins. So what is OVM? OVM actually is a DSM program. So we have a nutritional guideline for vitamins. So everyone knows that. We are the largest vitamin producer and also nutritional lipid producer. We also produce a lot of other beta carotene, other antioxidant. But vitamin is our core business. We have a longest history, produce a lot of vitamins and supply both humans and also animals. So we have this vitamin guideline. We provide high quality vitamins in the diet. At the level, it's not minimal, it's an optimal level that will support pet wellness and health in their whole life. So we talk about nutrition. So what do we talk about? What do we concern? What nutrition concerns? So we probably can boil it down to three basic questions for any animals and include humans, right? So one is what? What nutrient animal need? Dog and cats and humans. What do we need? So for that part for dog and cats, we have a very good understanding what nutrient we need, right? And we need all these 13 vitamins. But we're still improving on that. If you are in the pet food business, you'll know before, even today, we don't consider EPA, DHA. That's the major active component in fish oil. Provide all this good health benefit. They are not essential by Apple definition for cats and dogs. But now, hopefully next year, you'll see the revised nutrient profile. EPA, DHA will become essential nutrient for kittens and for puppies. So that part is still evolving, but we have a decent understanding what the nutrients we need for dogs and cats. So the next is how much, and that's a big question, and that's come to this OVM. So it's really depends on what's your goal, what's your target. Are you just want to prevent a nutrient deficiency, let's say vitamin deficiency, or you want to have the better performance? And then dog and cats have a different need, so different requirements. So that is a big area, still quickly evolving. You will see a lot of studies, a lot of new discoveries in those areas. So then the other question, how do you deliver it? You can deliver through food, through a supplement, and then you can make it even drug pure and then inject in the IV, IV injection. So a lot of ways to deliver it. And what kind of form do you use to deliver it? Particular for vitamin, everyone knows that vitamin is not stable. You lost it during the process, and then you lost it during the storage, and this stays in the commercial production. From the time you produce the food to the time cats and dogs eat the food. Sometimes that period could be quite long. You process it, package it, distribution it, and then consumers, pet owner, buy it, take home, put in a container. It takes months, 1 month or two, for the dog and cat to finish it. So it's a long time, and vitamin cannot be that stable. So you have to watch when the cats and dogs eat that food, do the food still contain sufficient amount of vitamins in the food. Now we talk about the major three guidelines for vitamin and other also nutrients for cat and dog. So first we talk about what is the nutrient requirement for dog and cats. Okay. Before APCOs, before other guidelines, people mostly use NRC. That's the National Research Council. They developed this guidelines for dog and cat, so most pet food companies follow that. Since then, we have this APCO, and in North America, including Canada, and we use APCO now as a guideline. And I'll talk a little bit about that why people industry, pet food industry now use alcohol rather than NRC anymore, and what's the difference? What's the rationale behind that? And if you look at another major guideline, and you can consider this is a PDF, you can consider this is a alcohol version of European version. So European countries, so there's 26 European countries, they form this association organization, they develop their own guidelines. It's very similar to alcohol, and that is widely used in European countries and also some other part of the region. And then you have the rest of the world. So some countries, some regions, they have their local authorities, they have their own guidelines. But overall, all this is very similar. So then let's look at how the NRC developed their guidelines. So NRC is very academic, so they have all these top experts, health nutritionists, and they gather together and they do the extensive literature search and they find all these publications and they come to this kind of conclusion, provide the nutrient requirement for dog and cat. So it's a very extensive research, scientifically based. And then from there, APCO used that as a foundation, and the PDF also used that as a foundation to develop their own guidelines. And there, they consider their practice and uniqueness in the pet food industry. I'll talk about that later on too. And you'll see a lot of inter-reference between APCO, between PDF, and between other nutrition guidelines. So there's a lot of this interactions. And because APCO PDF is based on the NRC, and they also consider their own experience, their own studies, their own practice. So there's some difference there. We'll talk about that later on. So the most recent NRC recommendation is published 2006. That's the most recent. So now we're in 2015, 9 years already passed. So there'll be a lot of new information that's not in NRC publication. But if you look at the PDF, their most recent year is 2012. So they have more information incorporated into their guideline. So based on that, you can see NRC is not to pick up the progress of scientific discovery. So they're kind of lag behind. Like I said, their most recent version is 2006. And if you look at the history of NRC development, before this 2006 version, and there's a cat one, is published in 1986, and the dog version is 1985. And between those two versions, you see 20 years passed. During those 20 years, there's a lot of new research, a lot of new discoveries. So if you, let's say, you're in 2005, before 2006 publications, and then you're using 1986 version, 1985 versions, so a lot of information is not there. You're not using updated information. So you're using old version information. So that's why it's kind of important to keep up new information, new research, new publications. So that's why NRC is a good foundation, but it's kind of very slow, right? So today we have 9 years past, and we still don't have the newer NRC available yet. And what about APCO? So APCO have a publication every year. So every year, APCO have a new publication and have new information updated. But what about the nutrient profile? And that's the things we use, guidelines we use to formulate the pet food, right? But that one still very, very similar in 1995. It's very, very old. So I think we're working hard to editor, to revise it. So hopefully next year we'll have our new nutrient profile for dog and cat. And that's depends next month the board will vote. Are they going to adopt that new nutrient profile? So PDF is doing much better because they are majorly e-version using electronic version. So in their website, they They want to do that every year. You have all these experts gather together, say, so what is new, what need to change, what need to improve, and they do that on their website. But last time when I checked, they're still 2012 version. So you see, still a few years behind. So now let's talk about what's the difference between the AFCO and NRC. Why we need AFCO? If NRC is so scientific, how pet nutrition expert develop that guidelines, why we still need the AFCO, right? So NRC, when they do research, they really want to control all the irrelevant factors. So they use very purified ingredient. They call it a purified diet to do the research, find what's the truth, what's the requirement, those things, right? For example, they use casein as a protein source, and they use very pure starch as a carb source, and they use the cellulose, very pure cellulose as a fiber source, and they use the fat, relatively pure fat as their fatty acid source. But then look what we made pet food. When we make pet food, we use corn, we use wheat, we use barley as a major carb source, and we use the chicken byproduct meal as a protein source. And we also use the corn gluten meal as a protein source, right? So that is quite different. And we also use the beef pulp and other fat source as a fiber source. It's not pure cellulose. But you do see some pet food uses cellulose in their products. And then we use the chicken fat, vegetable fat. So you can see when we make a pet food, in reality, in the pet food company, we use quite a broad, different raw ingredients. The nutrient in those ingredients is not highly bioavailable when you compare to the ingredients used by NRC. Those is, very basic scientific research. Those ingredients have nutrients is highly bioavailable. So that's a gap, right? So NRC, when AFCO developed the practice, the guidelines, they use NRC basic information. They also consider the ingredient they use in making the pet food. What's the bioavailability factor there? So they consider that. And they also consider processing. Will that processing improve the bioavailability or decrease bioavailability? So they consider all these things and then add those factors into the guideline, then come up this AFCO guideline. So it's come to the real world, so reflect the real things. So that's the AFCO guideline coming into here. And similarly, PDR. Now we talk about the nutrient requirement. What do we talk about? What do you mean by nutrient requirement? So if you read NRC definition, so it's kind of a difficult concept if you're not in the field. But the bottom line is, this is the minimal amount of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, proteins, amino acid you need, or cats and dogs need for that particular life stage of the adult, senior, for that particular life stage, or even different activities, sport dog, hunting dog, they need to prevent the deficiency. So that's the minimal bottom line. If you don't want to below that. If you're below that, you will have deficiency problem. Okay? And then another is a recommended allowance. So this level is typically higher than the minimum requirement, and same things for the different life stage, different species. But this level also considers the bioavailability. So what kind of nutrient, what kind of ingredient you use, what's the bioavailability of a nutrient in that ingredient, and also consider the individual differences. Let's say dog is a dog, but that's an individual difference, right? So their genetic makeup still have some difference in their way to metabolize a nutrient. So that's why they build that into it to come to this recommended allowance. And before AFCO, before the PDR, when people formulate the pet food, and that's the level they use. But it's still pretty low, right? And then the other level is safe upper limit. So you always see, can I put more? Is the more the better? Not really, because vitamin A, vitamin D, if you put too much, could be toxic. So NRC also provides this level. But is this level the maximal? If I reach this level, above this level, I definitely will have toxic effect? Not really, because some of this number is come from individual tests. Let's say dog, cats, feed this level, they don't see any adverse effect. But they didn't test a higher level. Will the higher level have the adverse effect? They don't know. But they know for this level they tested, they don't see the adverse effect. So you could go higher, but be cautious. So what factors can affect optimal vitamin nutrition? Now we talk about vitamin nutrition. So animal species, obvious. Dogs, cat, different. And if you look at ethical profile, dog nutrient profile is different from cats. In life stage, obvious. You have a kitten, you have a puppy, you have a dog, and you have senior, older dog, cats. And you have a lifestyle. Some cat is very inactive, and they most times stay in house. And sometimes some dog is very active. They're hunting, sporting, so their requirement could be different. And also individual variation, we already talked about that a bit. And also the form and the bioavailability of vitamins. So vitamin can have a different form. So in the vitamin industries, we use a encapsulation, different form, chemical form, try to protect the vitamin, to make it more stable, more durable during the process, and also during the storage, right? But we also want to make sure you heavily protect the vitamins, but will that still available? When they come to the intestine, in GIs, will that be absorbed, become part of the body as functional? So that's another thing you need to consider. And also the nutrient interactions. You probably heard something like say, if you have too much iron in the diet, and then you'll have copper deficiency, because too much iron could inhibit copper absorption. So nutrients have interactions. When those nutrients come into the body, they also have interactions. So it's not a separate individual things. So vitamin, we have 13 vitamins. When they come into the body, they work together. So you have to consider all their interactions. And the other thing is what's the endpoint that you use to measure the requirement. So endpoint here we says, are you using growth? Let's say how much body weight again they have when you feed this nutrient level. Let's say for puppies, for kittens, they are growing, you can measure that. But for adults, they are not growing, so you cannot use that to measure the nutrient requirement, vitamin requirement. Then you can use, because we know vitamin is a cofactor for the enzyme, then you can measure the enzyme activity, see how much vitamins you provide, can have the best enzyme activity. And then you can measure other things, let's say general skin and hair condition, and then their performance, a lot of things you can measure. Longevity. So what I talked about, the level can support that kind of measurement. So it really depends on what are your end target. The requirement could be quite different. And also the environment is a major factor. Cats living in Alaska compared to cats living in Florida, their environment is quite different. That can also affect their requirement. So all this comes into play. You need to understand to determine what's the optimal level of vitamins you need to provide to that particular cat, dog and cat, to sustain their well-being and their health. So I'll give you two examples about different vitamin levels can have additional health benefit. And the first one is supplement called pantothenic acid, and niacin, and biotin. And this study found it can improve hair and the skin conditions in dog. So this red bar is ethical level. So if you read ethical dog nutrient profile, that's the level guidelines when you formulate dog food. And the blue bar is the actual level they put into the dog food to feed dog a test diet. You can see that the pantothenic acid and the niacin is much, much higher than the actual nutrient profile. And they also have biotin in their food. Biotin is not in the dog nutrient profile, actual nutrient profile, but if you look at the level they add in, it's very, very high. It's much higher if you compare to other requirements. And here's what they found. When they fit this test diet, they found it can reduce the cold scale or danger, those white flakes, and also increase the cold softness. So they have a human panel to feel the cold of those dogs and feel the softness. And they also can see improve the optimal cold feel, as I think that same things, panel feel the cold. And also decrease the transient normal water loss. So this kind of things they measure. They use a special machine to measure how much water loss from the skin. If you lost a lot of water through the skin, typically it's a dry skin, so the skin quality is poor. So this measurement really tests the integrity of the skin. So they saw, so the bottom line is the less water loss, the better of the skin, the better integrity. So they have this higher supplement of pantothenic acid, biotins, niacins. They can see improve the skin integrity. So this study is a cat study, and they use vitamin E. Vitamin E is a critical nutrient. They supplement the vitamin E, see improved immune function. And this is a cat study. Again, see that red bar is the actual level, actual nutrient profile for cats. And then they have a control that's right at the actual level. And they have test 1 diet, test 2 diet. And test 1 diet, you can see it's about 300 IU per kilo. And the test 2 diet have more than 500 IU per kilo of vitamin E in the diet. So it's almost 10 times the test 2 diet compared to actual nutrient profile for cats. And then this is a little bit crowded, complicated, but let me explain a little bit here. So if you look, this has a 3 panel, and all this column is baseline. That means all the cats feed the same food, right? And then this is when they feed the test diet 1, they formulate a 250 IU per kilo. The one I showed you over there is actually analyzed the level in their test diet. And here they formulate the 500 IU per kilo, and that is actually analyzed level, so it's higher than they formulated. And then we look at it here. This is the younger cats. So this 2 bar is the younger cats, and this 2 bar is the older cats. So it's more than 7 years old. So older cats. And then if you look at this bar, and that's when they feed the base diet, the control diet. And this bar is when they feed the test diet. Is that clear? Okay. So now we look at the test 1. So let me go here to another slide. So what they do is they take the blood sample, isolate the lymphocyte, that's the major immune function component, and they will use different mitogen to stimulate the lymphocyte proliferation. So essentially you need this component to start that process, okay? So they use a different kind of mitogens there. So this panel A is using cone A as a mitogen, and this cone A stimulates the T lymphocyte proliferation. And let's look here. And this is all older cat, right? This is the older cat. This is when they feed the control diet, and this is when they feed the test diet, supplement to 250 IU vitamin E. When you compare younger cats, older cats, they both fed the base diet, control diet. You can see older cats' immune function is kind of low when they compare to younger cats. And that's pretty much across the board. In humans, in other animal species, you get all your immune function to kind of decline. But then when they feed the vitamin E supplement at about 300 IU per kilo, you can see their immune function significantly improved. It's even better than the younger cats. Okay? And the similar things you see there when they feed even higher vitamin E supplement, and they significantly improve immune function in older cats. And this is, they use another mitogen, PHA. This also stimulates T lymphocyte proliferation. And you see the similar phenomenon in older cats. When you feed about the 300 IU per kilo vitamin E supplement and significantly improve the immune function, it's almost like a younger cat, right? Their immune function almost like a younger cat. And then this is a younger cat. So here you look at the younger cat when feed almost 500, more than 500 IU vitamin E supplement. You say this is a control, and they also improve the younger cat immune function. And this is use another mitogen, and this mitogen stimulates both the B lymphocyte and also T lymphocyte. Okay? You can see here younger animal again with a vitamin E supplement can improve the immune function. And now we talk a little bit about vitamin qualities. So here we show 3 different vitamins. This is crystalline vitamin, this is cellular coated vitamin C, and this is Stacy, is a phosphorylated vitamin C. It's very stable. And then if you look at the different temperature, and the different temperature, and it's how they are stable, how the performance, you can see Stacy is very stable. Blue bar is very stable compared to other form of vitamin C. So this tells us the form of vitamin C is important. So when you purchase vitamin C, put into your product, you have to think, what are my process conditions? What are my storage? What are my shelf life? So which vitamin C I should choose? Okay? And this one shows the vitamin A products. So you'll see a lot of vitamin E supplier out there in the marketplace. And this study tested the raw B mix vitamin A 1000 versus other products available on the market. And this is in the feed pellet. So the light green bar is at 1 month storage at 95 degrees, 95 F Fahrenheit. And the blue bar is 3 months at 77 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see the performance retention of the raw mix A1000. You see the retention is 96 compared to products A, product 1, 2, 3, and also product 4. You can see the product stability is quite different. Okay? And now we talk about the bioavailability. So you can make a very stable vitamins, both throughout the partial processing, long-term storage, but are they still available for cats? So you have to consider availability. Okay? So in this studies, you can see it's in in chicken they feed 3 different products. One is a raw mix A500 and the raw mix A1000 versus another vitamin A products. They feed the chicken 2,000 IU vitamin A, 4,000 or 8,000, same dose of these 3 products, and they measure the vitamin A concentration in the liver. So that means you have to be absorbed and stored in the liver, right? So the higher concentration in the liver of this vitamin A, the better bioavailability. Is that clear? Okay. So you can see these 3 products, and the raw mix A500 and the raw mix A1000, they perform similarly. They have a higher concentration at different dose level compared to this product. So relatively, this product has a lower bioavailability. So these things you have to come in mind when you design a product, when you decide which vitamin you purchase, because the retention during the process, higher retention, higher bioavailability, then you can use a lower amount in your product, right? Because it's a more relatively potency. In this case, you have a lower overage, and you can save your cost. So put together in a very simple way, says, okay, here's the total vitamin intake, and there's the average animal response. Doesn't matter what response you use. You can use the longevity, you can use the performance, hair, skin conditions, enzyme activities. So those kind of relationship, and you can look at the curve. In general, it's like that. Okay. So within this line, there's a block. That means that the amount not enough, and you have a vitamin deficiency problem. Okay. And with the increase of intake, and you'll meet the APCO NRC guidelines. Let's say you meet their minimal requirement. You can prevent the deficiency. But when you want a better performance, then you probably want this optimal vitamin nutrition. So you need a little bit higher to have better performance, well-being, health conditions, right? And then you can have this special with an even higher amount. You can have this special effect, special benefit, like just we show, increase the hair and the skin condition, and the improved immune function. So in summary, OVM, Optimal Vitamin Nutrition Program from DSM, will strive to apply the most updated knowledge of vitamin science. So we talk about articles, NRCs, TDF, they take time to update, right? But vitamin is our business, so that's our life. So we watch very closely for the development of vitamins. So we update our OEM very frequently to incorporate all those new discoveries and the science. And we use the highest quality of possible vitamins. So we have been in the business for so long, we understand it, so we produce the best quality of products. And we provide a long-term health and well-being benefit. So it's not just to prevent vitamin deficiencies, meet the requirement, meet the guidelines. So we try to find this optimal level that will provide the best health benefit in the long term. Okay? Well, thank you very much for your attention, and I'd like to address any questions.